Ever heard a campfire story that gave you chills? This one's different. It's not just scary, it's real. And by the end, you'll be checking over your shoulder. For years, I worked as a camp counselor at an overnight camp in the Muskokas. It was the best job I ever had. Despite the long hours, the lack of pay, and the campers who could be, at times, insufferable. But there was one part of the job that made up for all of that. The stories. There was nothing better than sitting around a dying campfire, surrounded by wide-eyed junior high kids who begged for the scariest, most blood-curdling tales I could muster. And I told them all. The babysitter and the eerie clown statue, the driver and the strange gas station attendant, the woman and her loyal but unseen dog. But my best stories? I saved those for the overnight trips in Algonquin Park. For those unfamiliar, it's a vast wilderness in Ontario. Nearly 8,000 square kilometers of dense forests, pristine lakes, and winding rivers. Days were spent paddling through mirror-like waters, while nights were filled with laughter, s'mores, and singing, our voices carrying through the emptiness. There was something freeing about being the only people for miles. And when the night wound down, I would lean in close and whisper the kinds of stories that made even the bravest kids inch closer to the fire. This particular night was no different. The kids had quieted, their nerves rattled just enough to keep them from talking over me. My co-counselor Laura smirked as I spun my final tale. And that's why, if you ever hear your dog licking your hand in the middle of the night, you might want to check under the bed. The campers groaned, a mix of fear and satisfaction. I insisted, like I always did, that every story I told was absolutely true. Then I sent them off to bed. It had been a long day. The kids crawled into their tents without complaint, and Laura followed soon after, leaving just me by the fire. I stretched, breathing in the crisp, pine-scented air, and gazed out at the lake. The water was glassy, reflecting the partial moon. Across the lake, the cliffs towered into the night sky, jagged and dark. I idly wondered if we could canoe over in the morning, climb up a few dozen feet, and do some cliff jumping. Then I saw it. At the very top of the cliffs, a small light bobbed in the darkness. At first, I thought it was a star, but it was too large, too golden. It moved in a slow arc, like it was swaying in someone's hand. Another appeared beside it. Then another, and another. I sat up, my stomach sinking. My hands fumbled for my bag, pulling out my digital camera. I zoomed in on the glowing orbs. My heart pounded as I counted them. Once, twice, 8. Oh shit! I shot to my feet, racing to the tents. Hey guys, wake up, we gotta go. There was groaning, some muttering. Laura unzipped her tent, blinking at me in confusion. What? I hate to do this, I said, keeping my voice even. But the clouds are looking really bad. There's a big storm rolling in. If we stay here, it's gonna ruin our trip. Laura frowned. Where would we even go? I pulled out the map, running a finger along the worn paper. There's a ranger's station a few kilometers south. We can make it there in a couple of hours. The campers groaned, but I forced a grin. Come on. I'll tell you a story on the way. It's my best one. That got them moving. Within 10 minutes, we had packed up and begun the trek into the woods, our flashlights casting long, thin beams through the darkness. When I was sure we were moving steadily, I began. Long before European settlers arrived, this land belonged to the First Nations people. They traveled across Canada, following the great herds, and eventually, they reached Ontario. Small groups splintered off, searching for land to call home. One such group, 20 men, women, and children, found themselves in this very area one bitter October. The weather turned suddenly, and within an hour, they were caught in a blinding snowstorm. They weren't prepared. Their clothes were meant for fall, not freezing winds and ice. But they had no choice. They had to press on. As night fell, they reached a narrow cliffside path, towering over a churning black lake. They had to cross. But with the storm raging, they could barely see a foot in front of them. So an elder had an idea. Using what little kerosene they had left, they lit lanterns for each traveler. Not to see the path, but to see the person in front of them. As long as they followed the glow, they wouldn't be lost. The strongest of the men led the way, guiding them slowly up the slick, frozen rock. The wind howled. Their hands were numb. Their path was only a few feet wide, dangerously slippery. Then, the leader stumbled. One misstep. The wind roared, and he was gone. The others didn't see him fall. They only saw his lantern drop, flickering, until the lake swallowed it whole. They had no time to mourn. They pressed on. Then another fell. Then a child. One by one, they lost their grip, their balance, until only one remained. The last survivor cursed the earth as he slipped, his lantern the final one to vanish into the blackness below. They say on nights like this, when the conditions are just right, the lost travelers appear again, their lanterns swinging, searching for the home they'll never find. The kids were silent. Even Laura looked unsettled. Then I saw it, light. Not on the cliffs. Ahead. Relief flooded me. The Rangers' station. We picked up the pace, stumbling into a clearing buzzing with activity. Trucks were being loaded, radios crackled, voices shouted over the wind. A burly man rushed toward us. "You kids, get in the trucks. We don't have much time." Laura and I herded the campers into the truck bed. "What's going on?" I asked. "You didn't hear? Huge storm system rolling in. Tornadoes have already touched down. We're getting everyone out. Let's go." The truck rumbled to life. I collapsed against the side, my head spinning. Laura leaned in. How did you know?" I swallowed, my mouth dry. "I saw the lights." Her face paled. "How many?" My voice barely came out. 8. She glanced at the kids, every single one accounted for. She knew the story. She knew what I had left out. The lights weren't random. They weren't just echoes of the past. They were warnings. One light for each soul about to be lost. Still got goosebumps? Share this story around your next campfire, if you dare, and let me know. How many lights would you see? Eyes.